The list in my mother's hand wasn't an apology. It wasn't a birthday card. It wasn't even a message asking how I had survived the last 9 years. It was a neat sheet of paper covered in blue ink, every line ending with a dollar amount. By the time my eyes reached the bottom, the total read $925,000. She looked at me without a trace of guilt and quietly said, "We need to discuss the family's future." At that moment, I almost laughed. Because while she had brought one page filled with demands, I had spent 9 years collecting something far more valuable, proof. Before I tell you what happened next, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Stories like this remind us that real family is built on love, not blood. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I read every comment because every story deserves to be heard. 9 years earlier, my life had fallen apart in the small town of Millfield, Ohio. My name is Iris Archer. I was 24 when my own parents decided I no longer belonged in their family. Growing up, our house always looked perfect from the outside. My father, Kenneth, worked the same job for decades, quiet and dependable. My mother, Diane, controlled everything inside our home and almost everything that happened at church. People admired her. They thought she was kind. Only the people living under her roof knew another version. My younger sister, Paige, could do no wrong. She was loud, charming, everyone's favorite. I was different. Quiet. Responsible. The daughter who earned perfect grades without expecting applause. Love in our house wasn't unconditional. It was earned. And somehow, I was always falling short. Everything changed when I received a full scholarship to Ohio State University. My mother hugged me before I left and slipped a handwritten card into my suitcase. "Come home soon. You belong with us." For years, I believed every word. Then I met Marcus Ellison. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't rich. He simply listened whenever I spoke, like my thoughts actually mattered. We spent hours studying together before those conversations slowly became dinners, then walks, then dreams about the future. Marcus never promised me luxury. He promised partnership. 3 years later, sitting in our tiny apartment, he smiled and said softly, "I don't just want a future. I want my future to be with you." I said yes before he could even finish. That night I called my parents, expecting tears of happiness. Instead, silence. 7 painfully long seconds. Then my mother's cold voice finally broke it. "Think very carefully about what this decision will do to this family. Not congratulations. Not I'm happy for you. A warning." I didn't understand it yet. But within weeks, my family would force me to choose between the man I loved and the people who had raised me. And that choice would change all of our lives forever. The letter arrived on a rainy Thursday. Not a text. Not an email. A handwritten envelope with my mother's familiar cursive across the front. For a brief moment, hope flickered inside me. Maybe she had changed her mind. Maybe she wanted to meet Marcus. Maybe this nightmare was finally ending. I carried the envelope into our apartment with trembling hands. Marcus looked up from the kitchen table. "Everything okay?" I think it's from Mom." He smiled gently. "Open it." I unfolded the cream-colored paper. The first few lines sounded polite enough. Then I reached the final paragraph. "If you marry Marcus, you are choosing him over this family. We will not attend your wedding. And if you walk down that aisle, don't expect to walk back through our door. He is not one of us, and he never will be." The room felt strangely quiet. I read those words again. Then again. Each time they hurt more than before. Marcus slowly took the letter from my shaking hands. He didn't say anything immediately. He simply wrapped his arm around my shoulders while I stared at the floor. "Iris," he whispered. "I'm okay." But I wasn't. The hardest part wasn't losing a wedding. It was realizing my own parents believed the man I loved would never be worthy of standing beside them. Still, I refused to hate them. Deep down, I kept telling myself they just needed time. A week later, Marcus and I were married in a small courthouse ceremony. There were no church bells. No father walking me down the aisle. No mother adjusting my dress. Only 12 people came, every one of them from Marcus's side. His mother, Cora, gently pinned a flower onto my dress and smiled through watery eyes. "You are my daughter now," she whispered before hugging me tightly. Those 6 words healed something inside me that had been breaking for weeks. The judge mispronounced our names. Everyone laughed. Afterward, we celebrated at a small Thai restaurant with inexpensive food, loud laughter, and people who genuinely wanted us there. It wasn't the wedding I had dreamed about. It was better. Because every smile in that room was real. That night, after everyone left, I sat on the edge of our bed holding my bouquet. Marcus noticed the tears rolling down my face. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. I looked at him. "Never. I just wish my parents had wanted to see this." He squeezed my hand. "One day they'll realize what they lost." I wanted to believe him. A week later, I mailed my parents a wedding photo with a short handwritten note. "We're happy. I hope one day you can be happy for us too." 11 days later. The envelope appeared in our mailbox again. Across the front, stamped in bright red ink, were 3 words that felt colder than winter. "Return to sender." I stood in the driveway staring at it for nearly 5 minutes. Marcus walked outside. "They sent it back?" I nodded silently. He reached for the envelope, but I stopped him. "No." I whispered. "I'm keeping this." That single envelope became the first piece of evidence inside a folder I never expected to create. At the time, I wasn't collecting proof for revenge. I wasn't planning a confrontation. I simply couldn't throw away the last pieces of a family that had erased me from their lives. I opened my desk drawer. Placed the returned wedding photo inside. Wrote the date beside it in red ink. And unknowingly began a record that would grow thicker with every passing year. I had no idea that one day, that binder would become more powerful than any argument I could ever make. The first year after our wedding was the hardest. I called my mother 4 different times. Every call went straight to voicemail. Still, I left messages. "Hi, Mom. I just wanted to hear your voice. Marcus started a new job, and I'm studying for my CPA exam. I miss you. Whenever you're ready, please call." She never did. I mailed birthday cards to both of my parents. Christmas cards. Anniversary wishes. Every envelope found its way back to my mailbox with the same cruel red stamp. "Return to sender." Each time, I quietly opened my desk drawer. I dated the envelope. Labeled it. And placed it inside the growing navy blue binder. Marcus noticed one evening as I slipped another unopened card into a plastic sleeve. "You really keep every one of them?" I nodded. "I'm not saving them because I hate them." "Then why?" I looked down at the binder. "Because one day our children will ask why they never knew my side of the family. When that day comes, I don't want to give them anger. I want to give them the truth." Marcus reached across the table and gently squeezed my hand. "They're going to know what real love looks like, Iris." Those words stayed with me. While Ohio kept its silence, Marcus and I kept building our future. Late nights turned into business plans. Small savings became investments. Dreams slowly transformed into something real. Then life surprised us with the greatest blessing of all. On a cold Wednesday morning, our twins, Liam and Sophie, were born. Marcus stood beside the hospital window holding one baby in each arm, tears streaming down his face. "They'll never question whether they're loved," he whispered. The next morning, Cora arrived carrying handmade blankets and enough homemade food to feed an army. She spent 2 weeks helping us without asking for anything in return. I mailed my parents ultrasound photos. Birth announcements. Pictures of their newborn grandchildren. Every single envelope came back unopened. One by one. 3 more pieces of evidence slid into the binder. And with every returned photo, I realized something heartbreaking. The people who shared my blood had rejected us. But the woman who shared none of it had already become the grandmother my children would never have to live without. Years slipped by faster than I ever imagined. The binder grew thicker. Our family grew stronger. And the silence from Ohio became something I no longer expected to break. Marcus eventually left his secure job to chase an idea that had been living in his head for months, a compliance software platform for small businesses. Most people thought we were taking a huge risk. Maybe we were. Every evening after work, I sat beside him in our tiny garage office. While he wrote code, I built financial models, tested reports, and planned budgets. We lived on coffee, leftovers, and stubborn determination. Some nights we looked at each other and laughed. If this fails, Marcus joked, at least we'll fail together. I smiled. We're not failing. Months later, Compliance Core welcomed its very first customers. The beginning wasn't glamorous. Servers crashed. Bugs appeared at the worst possible moments. Money was tight. But every problem we solved made the company stronger. Soon we hired our first employees. Then our first office. Then another. Life finally felt peaceful. Every evening at exactly 6:30, no matter how busy we were, we ate dinner together as a family. That rule was never broken. Meanwhile, Cora never missed a birthday. She taught Liam how to make grilled cheese sandwiches. She helped Sophie identify birds in the backyard. She was present for every scraped knee, every school play, every Christmas morning. She never had to remind the twins she loved them. They already knew. One evening Marcus noticed me placing another document into the navy binder. He sighed softly. "You still keep adding to it?" I closed the cover carefully. "I'm not holding on to the past." "Then what are you holding on to?" "The truth." I looked toward the backyard where Liam and Sophie were laughing together. If they ever ask why one side of the family disappeared, I'll never have to guess. I'll have the answers. At that moment, neither of us realized something unbelievable was already happening hundreds of miles away. The company we'd built from a freezing garage had finally caught the attention of people back in Ohio. And for the first time in years, my family's silence was about to come to an end. Success has a strange way of waking people who chose to sleep through your pain. By our 9th year, Compliance Core had become one of the fastest-growing companies in the industry. What started in a cold garage had grown into a business worth millions. Marcus and I stood together on the NASDAQ trading floor, watching the opening bell echo through the room. Everyone around us was celebrating. But deep inside, I felt something was coming. When we landed back in Portland, my phone lit up with missed calls. My father. My mother. Numbers I hadn't seen in nearly a decade. Then, exactly 2 weeks later, the doorbell rang. Standing on my porch was Diane Archer. A small suitcase rested beside her feet. In her hand was a folded sheet of paper. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask about Marcus. She didn't ask about Liam or Sophie. She calmly unfolded the paper and began reading. Your father's retirement. Paige's son's college. Our medical bills. The family mortgage. Monthly support. Every request ended with another dollar amount. When she finished, she looked at me and quietly said, "This is what family does." I looked at her for a long moment. Then I smiled, not out of happiness, but because I had been preparing for this moment for 9 years. Without saying a word, I walked into my office. Opened the bottom drawer. Picked up the heavy navy blue binder. And placed it beside her list. You brought 1 page. I brought 9 years. One by one, I laid every returned birthday card on the table. Every ignored voicemail. Every unopened photo of Liam and Sophie. Every screenshot. Every piece of proof that she had chosen silence long before she chose reconciliation. The kitchen became completely silent. Tears slowly filled her eyes. Iris. I was wrong. For a second. Those were the words I had dreamed of hearing. But they never came. Instead, she whispered. We're family, and families help each other. That was when I finally understood. She hadn't come back because she missed her daughter. She came back because she had discovered my value. I gently closed the binder. My children already know what family looks like. It isn't measured by blood. It isn't measured by money. It's measured by who stayed when there was nothing to gain. Just then Marcus walked into the kitchen. Without asking a single question, he placed his hand on my shoulder. That simple gesture reminded me of everything we had built together. I looked back at my mother. I won't give you money. Not because I can't. But because love should never appear only after success. She quietly picked up her suitcase. For the first time in 9 years. She walked away. The front door closed softly behind her. Not with anger. Not with shouting. Just the sound of a chapter ending. A few weeks later, my father called. This time, there were no excuses. Only a quiet apology. Healing doesn't happen in one conversation. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. But forgiveness begins only when someone is willing to tell the truth. As for the binder, it still sits in the bottom drawer of my desk. Not as a symbol of revenge, but as a reminder that the truth never needs to raise its voice. If this story touched your heart, remember this. Never chase people who only remember your name after your success. The people who stand beside you when you have nothing are the ones who deserve a place beside you when you have everything. The end.